Hey everybody, what is going on? XLX here, got another Master Duel video for you, and it's Monday, which means it's time for another one of our weekly viewer specials. If this is your first viewer special, or if you are new to the channel, first of all, welcome. Second of all, in this series, every Monday we showcase replays from you all, the viewers. A nice way of seeing some decks that I might not normally have time or the resources to cover, and also just, yeah, a way to show off your cool games and builds. I really like seeing them. Just exploring what all is out there, especially from you all here in the community. So if you're interested in getting in on the viewer special, you're going to want to head down to the description below. There is an invite link to our Discord server, the Hex Lex Plex. Once you are over there, you're going to want to head down to the Master Duel section. There's a channel called Viewer Special Submissions. There you can drop your 9-digit player ID. Make sure this ID is entered correctly and that your replays are set to public. That way I can see those replays. But that's pretty much all I got for you for this opening spiel. That's all there really is to it. So let's go ahead and get into your duels. All right, first duel for this video is going to come to us from Zero Cusini, or Cosini? Hopefully I said your name correctly. Apologies if I butchered it there, but we got a going second game against Ryziel. We are going to be on Voiceless. For those who don't know, I think, open some of these packs on stream once, but Voiceless is a deck that I've actually wanted to build for a while, but it's so expensive, and there is always something else that's just a little bit more of interest to me that I want to build, whether it's another pet deck or like a meta deck that's about to come out. But I really like Voiceless. I think it's a really cool deck. I think it's a really good deck too. And if you go back to OCG tournament reports, from around the time Ryziel and Malice first came out, Voiceless was right up there as like sometimes even the third best deck in the room. So definitely do not sleep on Voiceless Voice. Not only is it still a great deck, but it's even good in this meta in particular. Looks like our opponent's going to be on Ryziel. Relatively standard, although they chose to run a playset of evenly instead of like more hand traps, which I think is pretty much always a mistake, but to each their own, I suppose. Alright, we are going second here, as mentioned, so let's see what kind of a board we're going to have to play into, or maybe we'll open some of our own hand traps and it won't be that bad. Let's see how things play out. Okay, we have Nib, but unfortunately that's not really going to be good enough, as Ryziel plays around Nib in pretty much every single one of its combo lines. Opponent's going to lead Ice, Special Summon Star, going for the cross, flipping up the face-down cross, overlaying into the Duo Drive. Okay. Duo Drive F gets to activate here, detaching to add the X Ryziel as well as Ryziel plugin. So yeah, now they have cross plus plugin. The Nib is no longer really going to be a feasible option here. We could still activate Nib if we wanted to make them use the plugin, which I think is a good call, because the plugin can provide some disruption for them during our turn. Like, if they end on a level 4 monster, then they could potentially use plugin to put the plasma hole in, well, attach the plasma hole, which would then get detached from the detonator, and then allow them to exceed summon. So I think they already did do that anyway, to be fair, attaching the plasma hole, but it stops them from summoning another Xyz monster. Like, the main thing it stops really is if we are able to negate their detonator, right? Like, let's say we top deck Imperm and then go Imperm on their detonator. Now they can't do the whole thing where they go detonator chain to pop itself and then revive with Impulse because, well, Impulse is in the graveyard. Or not Impulse, I don't know why I said Impulse, Plasma Hole. Throwing out that Ice Ryziel, that's the extra level 4 body. I think it's kind of funny that they end up discarding it evenly. Pretty typical. Alright, so here is our Skull Guardian. Opponent's going to chain the detonator on the Skull Guardian. Now, Voiceless does have a pretty solid built-in protection in the form of the continuous spell, the barrier, because once that's up, our stuff can't be targeted, which means that Ryziel detonator can't pop anymore. So we do get to revive the Skull Guardian here anyway. Looks like they're going to use the Plasma Hole, but they're going for Utopic Ray Lancer. I wonder if they thought they were going to summon a rank 4 there, like a different rank 4, but yeah, no, not quite. Okay, so they're going to go for Detonator again. We're going for the Skull Guardian, negate, and of course they're going to chain the Detonator once more, using Cross to negate the Skull Guardian F on resolution. But that's it, pretty much, for all of the interaction they have this turn. Well, except for that Ash Blossom there. But Cross is used up, Detonator materials are all used up, and the Aggregator negate is activating right now. And we still have Saphira. Saphira F pitching the ritual spell to add Sorvis before passing back over to our opponent. Now let's see, they have what, 55, 65 plus 770, 200 damage on the board right now. Not quite lethal, but they could very easily have it here. Going for the Rhizo Cross F, we're going to chain the continuous spell to special summon low. Going for the low search. Our opponent choosing not to negate on resolution. They could negate this Ash Blossom though by detaching from the Utopic Ray Lancer. Let's see if they do that. Oh no, wait, they can't do that because Rhizo Cross is detached from specifically a Rhizo Xyz monster, right? Not any rank 4. Because that would be broken. That would actually just be broken if it could detach from any rank 4. Then you would play a Rhizo engine in literally every single rank 4 deck, like no question. Again, to ritual summon during the opponent's turn, we're going to use the continuous spell Blessing that we set up there, sending off the low to summon out our Sorvis. Sorvis is the onboard ability to negate special summons. Not affects that special summon, but the special summon themselves. Think like, well, for fellow old school players, think like Thunder King Ryo. It's that kind of negate. It negates a... This lingo isn't used anymore, but Waves Cane. Back in my day, we called them quote-unquote inherent summons, but that's not actually the correct terminology, from what I understand. Yeah, not able to get to the Sorvis. Is it the spell or the trap card that's stopping it from being destroyed by battle? I believe it is the trap card here. Or maybe it's not. Maybe it's like a lingering effect of some kind. These decks I'm not familiar with. There's always some kind of lingering effect that I miss. But the comments are always nice enough to point them out, so. And there goes the Detonator. Yep, as mentioned before, Sorvis can negate summons, not the effects that summon. Although, is that a second plugin from our opponent? Or they... Looks like they cycled back the first one. Okay. They must have cycled it back with Cross and then added off Duo Drive, and I just missed that. Alright, just 2 cards going to our opponent's full Rhizial board here. They're going to use Red Detonator to pop the Blessing. Interesting, they decided there were enough of these weird continuous spell and trap cards, and Cross negates the Diviner here, with Aggregator also negating the Radiance, is the trap card's name. And here we're going for All Reliable Typhoon. If you can't do anything else, you know that you can at least turbo out a Typhoon. We can bounce back the Detonator, enter battle phase. Opponent's going to negate a Typhoon's F. We can still battle over the Star Liege because they summoned it in attack mode for some reason. Worth noting here, the attack drop from the Utopic Ray Lancer is permanent. And I believe that is the start of every battle phase? Oh no, it's just a continuous effect, I see. Okay, I thought it was an activated effect at the start of the battle phase. The start of the battle phase's effect is the one that negates stuff, right? Yes, and this negate is also, it does not stay until end of turn, so that's also permanent. I believe I'm reading that right. Yeah, it's negated, yep. Okay, a special star off ice. We're going to go for the low F, but they have a called by. Wow, it feels like we're just, you know, it feels like we're kind of constantly on the cusp of getting overrun in this game, but at the same time not. Like, our opponent has so many more resources than we do, but they just can't break through. That 100 points of damage they dealt just now is the first damage they've dealt all game, and we're going into turn 6. Simply unable to break through here. But it's going to go for Imperm on the Sorvis. Right off the bat, we have another Sorvis, though, in hand. We're going to respond with what is going to chain with their own Rhizial plugin. Although without the Plasma Hole in the graveyard any longer, this plugin really doesn't threaten that much, just to put a material on Detonator, which will then proc the Cross F, but we have Barrier now, so it just doesn't matter anymore. We should be just, like, good to go at this point, I think. Not only for, like, the searches, but also, again, Barrier states that, oh, it's only while we control low that our stuff is untargetable. But that shouldn't be too hard here, right? Yeah, there's low. Yep. Forgot Radiance just straight up summoned it. But even if not, we could have always just, yeah, ritual summon this Skull Guardian here. And all of a sudden, things don't feel so uneven anymore, do they? We're even getting a backup low here to be able to, oh, never mind. No, we're not. But we are getting the Sorvis back into our hand here. Opponent's going to go for the Utopic Armored Ray Lancer effect again. We do have to negate this one with Skull Guardian, otherwise our Skull Guardian is negated for good. Battling over their Star and Ice Ryzeals, passing back over to our opponent. See, now we're still in the same gameplay loop, except we're ahead at this point. This really does highlight how effective Voiceless is as a control deck, right? We don't need big flashy combos or a huge OTK swing to be able to win the game. We're just steadily grinding our opponent out of their advantage, while also building up our own, which is, you know, the pretty tried and true hallmark of what a control deck is trying to do. I love that, popping their field spell into other level 4 as soon as they normal summon Fuelos. I call that maximum psychological damage. And then we swing in with the Skull Guardian for the dub. I mean, literally, our opponent had 0 cards in hand and field. A complete reversal. This is just textbook control deck. Mwah, chef's kiss, so good. Voice is such a cool deck, and thank you very much, Zeno, for showing that off. That was excellent. But we still have, of course, some more to look at. Let's go into the next video, or the next replay, rather. Alright, continuing in our trend of control decks, going second against Ryzeal, we have Fun Enjoyer, aka the one and only over on the Discord server, who is playing Paleozoic. Good old-fashioned Paleo. Looks like a fairly standard build here. We got the 60 cards. We got all the stuff you expect to see. Which trap card is this? I don't remember this one. Simul Archfiends? Certain other player can special summon monsters of the same card types, Ritual, Fusion, Synchro, Caesar, Link, they already control. If you do not control 2 or more of the same card types, Ritual, Fusion, Synchro, Caesar, Link, all Ritual, Fusion, Synchro, Caesar, Link monsters you control gain 500 attack. Interesting. So it locks out certain decks from being able to combo, but it also looks like it might be a bit of a win con for us with the second F. I imagine both effects come into play here. I think this card is relatively new. Does it say it shows related cards, right? Okay. Yeah, I was gonna see if it said which pack it came out of, but. And then I don't remember this one either. Weightbridge. If your opponent controls 2 or more monsters than you do, your opponent must send monsters they control to the graveyard so they only control 1 monster. Oh, it's like budget Karma Cannon. Because this is like Karma Cannon in that your opponent is the one sending the monster, so it can send unaffected monsters, if I'm reading this correctly. So this is kind of like a budget Karma Cannon. I mean, I think we are. Oh, we're not playing Karma Cannon. Okay, so I think that might be what that is there. Seems like a very solid option here. As well as, of course, a bunch of stuff like T-Roar and Elemental Burst and Rise to Full Height that you'd expect to see from Paleo. Alright, and then our opponent, once again, is going to be on the Ryzeal. Even these random going second cards, and going first cards for that matter. Solemn Judgment in Ryzeal isn't, like, horrible. I kind of understand this. I still don't really understand this, but. In either case, I would say just play more hand traps. If you're ever like, should I play this card for specifically going second, just play more hand traps instead. Okay. Speaking of going second, that's what we're doing here. And they're going to go for Small World. Baylor and Lancia to X. Sense? X dumping Duo Drive there instead of Aggregators. Kind of interesting. I've seen people do that quite a bit, actually. I fell down to Platinum last month, so yesterday I spent a couple of hours just laddering from, like, Plat 3, I think I got up to Diamond 4. I saw so many Ryzeal players dumping, like, Duo Drives off of X. A little odd to me. Don't know why you wouldn't just dump Aggregator, but... oh, to each their own, I suppose. Alright, so here's Duo Drive, detaching 2. They already have Cross off of Star, so we're going to get Plug-in and a second Star. Okay. Specialing the Node, and then overlaying Star plus Ice into Dugaris. I think if you're gonna make an additional rank 4 on your turn 1, Dugaris is probably one of the better ones. Getting that draw 2, drawing more hand traps, or I guess lightning storms in our opponent's case. Okay, they're gonna send off the Dugaris, so that way they can make detonator. Yep, pretty standard. Attaching something that's not an aggregator, and then setting 3 before passing. Alright, let's see what we got here. I was going to draw phase max C. This is like one of the textbook examples of why it's not really that great of an idea. Like, I guess we are going to reasoning here, but they really should have waited for us to activate reasoning. Alright, did we... I forget if we have a rollback. We did get a rollback in there. That's good. Okay. Giving our opponent the draw 2 here to summon the Typhone. Typhone, of course, meaning that they can't use Detonator, but they do have Plasma Hole face down. We're going to end up using our rollback F here for the Dino-Miscus, banishing the Cross, setting 2, and then passing over to our opponent. Their draw phase is skipped, of course. And we're going to flip up the Simul Archfiends, which means they can no longer exceed summon. The Simul Archfiends, that actually does seem pretty good in this meta if you think about it, right? Because it's really effective against Ryzeal, who often has 2 Exceeds monsters in play and would want to summon more of them. And it's also very effective against Malice, which very often has 2 Link monsters in play and would then like to be able to summon more of them. Keep in mind with the Link summoning too, if I'm reading this right, let me actually read the card again, so I make sure I'm reading it right. Where is it? Here we go. Yeah. As they already control, so they can't link into another Link monster. It's just a lingering, they can't do it effect. I thought it was while they control a Link monster, or, you know, a monster of an extra type, they can't summon another one, but no, it's just a lingering effect of they just blanket can't do it if they controlled one at activation. That's how I'm reading that. Okay, see, that's odd, because for a second I was wondering if our opponent was simply not playing Aggregator, but there it is. I think what's happening is people are thinking of Aggregator as a proactive negate, right? Like, I wonder if the mental process is, oh, well, or my opponent doesn't have a card on the field to negate on turn 1, so why would I send Aggregator on turn 1? I think it might be the mentality there. Also, that was nice getting the Waybridge, sneaking that in there with the rollback. You know, in some ways, this is even like a more flexible Karmic hand. Well, it's just different, right? It just has a different applications in certain scenarios, but here it definitely has, you know, the application we like of getting rid of our opponent's board. Not affecting ours either, which is cool. Opponent's going to Solemn our Desires. It's fine. And then we're going to overlay for a rank 2, which is going to be the Opabinia. Opabinia F, detach to search for a Paleo card. Opponent's going to Imperm our Opabinia. We're chaining the Dino-Miscus, because of course a trap card was activated. And much like that last duel, you know, it's like I said at the top of the replay here, you know, right? This is another very grindy control deck that is, you know, aiming to dwindle our opponent's resources while simultaneously building up our own. And we're kind of in the middle stage of that right now, right? You see both us and our opponent have like similar number of cards in the field, slash in hand, you know, total resources currently available, but the Paleo has a different resource. It's not hand or field, that's Graveyard. Something that Ryzeal doesn't really share. Ryzeal's a very good deck, but doesn't really use the Graveyard as a resource. Not nearly the same way that something like Paleo does, right? Or to compare it to another deck, something like Tear Lament. Something where the Graveyard is pretty much your third hand. Or second hand. You know what I mean. Alright, they're going to go for normal summon Ice Ryzeal. We're going to chain the face down Lincolnia, and then also chain the Graveyard Barbarella to summon. And then Lincolnia will put the transaction rollback back into the Graveyard. And then as I go to summon Sword Ryzeal, we're going to use rollback on I imagine Simul Archfiends again. Yeah, there we go. Because our opponent controls an Exceeds monster, the Duo Drive, they can no longer Exceed summon for the remainder of the turn. No matter how many level 4 monsters they summon. And they're going to try to summon a lot, I imagine. Another X Ryzeal coming down. What did they send that time? Another Detonator. You know, our opponent is actually... These X Ryzeals are kind of like... working against them at this point. They're just giving themselves fewer and fewer options of, you know, what they can actually do here. Activating another Lincolnia from hand in order to put back the rollback. Opponent's going to chain Plasma Hole to try to pop the Opabinia, but that does not stop the Lincolnia from being, well, from resolving here. It already was activated. Alright, overlaying Candia and Morella, making another Opabinia. It's going to not only allow us to keep activating Paleo cards from hand, but also search one here momentarily, except our opponent's going for an Xyz summon, using 3 level 4s in order to summon a Ryziel Detonator. Detonator F, attaching the Aggregator. But here's the thing about Paleo Xyz monsters, right? They're kind of not affected by monster effects. We're going for Sky Cavalry Centuria here, battling over the sword, and then we get to overlay on top of that, of course, because Centuria battled. We're going to go for the Downward Magician, which will then be followed by Dazeus. And Opabinia, as mentioned, is unaffected by other monster effects. They can chain Detonator and pop our Zeus if they like. However, they're still going to lose their whole field, because the Detonator effect can only protect against effects that destroy, and Zeus does not destroy, Zeus sends. Now, they can use Cross to negate one of the activations. Very, very smart of us to use the effect twice, by the way. I can see a lot of people, myself included, totally forgetting about that and then just, you know, letting their Zeus not resolve or get negated. Yeah. Alright, now our opponent no longer has a field, but we still, of course, have an Opabinia, which searches Morella. Morella can activate from hand, with Chain the Dynamiscus, summon from the graveyard. Morella sending off the Elemental Burst, just in case they manage to build up a board again somehow. We can just wipe that at any moment. Bringing back our Soul, setting Torrential, and then our opponent's going to concede as we pass back. Again, another textbook control deck. And the thing about control decks, too, is everyone's always, you know, thinking like, oh, well, you know, they're scary if they go first because they send a million cards. But we're seeing control decks here that are beating Ryziel, one of the best decks in the meta, despite going second, which is wild. All right, we have one more duel we're going to check out before we finish off here. Let's go into that last game. Alright, and our last game comes to us from Dig Dug, aka Storm Von Gola X, over on the Discord server. We were going to be playing against Ryziel one last time. This time we're going to be taking the first turn, and we are on Branded. But it looks like we're also throwing in some interesting tech, a Havness. Now that is interesting. I wonder if this Havness will come up here, because I don't see any Tier 1 monsters in the extra deck. But I don't think you have to fusion for specifically a Tier monster, do you? No, it's just for anything. Okay, yeah, I'm very interested to see how that plays out. So we got some Synchro options in here as well. I'm always a fan of that. Hell yeah. And then our opponent, once again, going to be on Ryziel. This opponent is on Fiendsmith Ryziel, though. And once again, with the playing random going second cards, like Droplet is a lot more understandable because yes, this is a board breaker. It's technically kind of a going second card, but you can also just set this on turn 1 and use it as a negate during your opponent's, you know, turn 1 on the second turn, right? So I like Droplet a lot more than playing like, you know, a Raigeki or something, or a Lightning Storm or Evenly, etc. I also think multiple track is not necessary for the Fiendsmith Ryziel build, but anyway. Let's go ahead and check out this last game here. Looks like another grindy game as 5 turns here. Although grind games against Ryziel are actually not that unheard of at all. I mean, especially when you're playing control decks. Like, not only the last 2 games, but I would argue that Branded is definitely at least control adjacent, right? It's got many of the hallmarks of a control deck. It just has the ability to OTK a little bit better than a lot of other control decks do. Alright, we got the Branded Regained and Lost up as we go into the Branded Fusion here for the Albion. Getting to search probably Mercurier here. Yeah. Branded is such a... I'll never get used to Branded. There was a minute, like, this was probably over a year ago to be fair, but there was a minute where I did kind of try to sit down with Branded and really get the hang of it, but there's so many moving parts, and there's no real, like... I feel like, I'm sure there are once you get used to it, but to me, as I'm trying to learn a deck like Branded, you know, I'm looking for like play patterns, and Branded is so situational in what it's trying to do, not just in terms of like what your hand looks like, but also what your opponent's doing. Alright, adding Albion. We get the Quim F, adding back, or summoning back the Mercurial. Mercurial works from field too, right? Yeah, face of hand or field to the graveyard. There's that Raigeki actually coming in clutch for our opponent. But they could have also just been playing more hand traps. I think that would have been better. They're going for the Engraver. We're going to flip up our call by here. Very good, as it will not only negate the Engraver, but also keep it out of the graveyard to be used later if they go like normal summon Lacrima or Lurie here. We get the Golden Sword Soul F, banishing to summon Quim. Quim F also triggers the Regain to get a draw here since we banished Golden Sword Soul. Oh, it's chaining Droplet, sending Lacrima in order to negate the Quim. So they must be about to normal summon Star Raziel if they're going to send Lacrima, right? Super Poly's a pretty good top deck here. Okay, yep, they're about to summon a Raziel monster, Sword Raziel. Sending Aggregator for X. Aggregator activates here on the Regain. They should have done that on the Quim though, right? Because we're just going to summon Albaz once they exceed summon here. Yeah, this is not going to work out, I don't think, the way our opponent wants it to. Unless we don't get the summon here. Oh, we need to summon Albaz from the graveyard, right? And we don't have one in the graveyard? Yeah, that's what it is. Oh, this is also negated as well. Huh. Oh, Droplet, duh. I forgot about that. The attack was halved. Yeah, of course. Alright, so they went for a dual drive plus detonator, but I mean, that's the thing about Raziel and why Raziel can be kind of controlly sometimes. There are actually a solid amount of times where Raziel has a bit of a time, you know, actually OTKing. Fiendsmith Raziel can do it a little more easily, but we have the call by for the Engraver, so that stops that. Ooh, Heavy Storm's not horrible here. I guess it depends how much we value having lost and regained as opposed to our opponent having the cross negate. Okay, High Spirits baiting out the Ash Blossom. I think it's a pretty important rule to follow still, is that if you're up against Branded, just save the Ash Blossom. Just save it for the Branded fusion. Okay, here we go. We're fusing Albaz and Havnus, going for Lubellion, which will trigger the Havnus F. Getting another fusion summon in the middle of our fusion summoning. That's cute. I haven't seen people do that. Havnus for Lubellion and getting another fusion summon. And you do it by putting stuff back too, which I could definitely see for Branded being like really good. It also, I mean, it played around this Raziel cross very well, you cannot deny. And we get to summon Masquerade by fusing the Havnus plus the Quim. Normal Albaz, pitching that Heavy Storm, opponent's going to chain the Raziel Plasma Hole, popping Albaz and Masquerade because they control two Raziel Xyz monsters. And of course, Albaz can no longer fuse because no longer on the field. Going Masquerade, crash into Duo Drive. This uses up the Detonator's last material. We're setting Super Poly and then adding back Cartesia. Now, of course, our Super Poly is live. But the Detonator and Duo Drive are different types and attributes, making Super Poly sometimes kind of tricky to use against Raziel. But if our opponent simply goes into a line that's all light fiends, now all of a sudden it becomes a lot easier. Yeah, at this point, we just wait for them to summon Lacrima and then special summon. Oh, they're summoning Engraver, huh? Okay. I don't know why our opponent is so allergic to summoning this Lacrima. I mean, I guess in the last hand it makes sense. Well, they discarded Lacrima, right? They didn't shuffle it back. Yeah, okay, never mind. I thought they shuffled it back for some reason. Getting to summon Cartesia here, and we also get to use the effect to fuse with the Lubellion. Is this going to be summoning the Granganol now? Yeah, there it is. Summoning out Granganol, Granganol F. Also triggers the branded Lost. Lost F to add another Quem. And then Granganol F sending the Cloud Beast, which will bounce back the Engraver. Oh yeah, that does let our opponent use the in-hand effect of Engraver. Didn't really solve our issue there, unfortunately. Oh, they haven't used cross-draw effect either. Yeah, now they can go Tracked for Lurie, and then Engraver, shuffle back Lacrima in order to summon, going into sequence. We use self-super poly, though. It doesn't really matter that much. We can just super poly them here. Did they use their normal summon? I think they did for Sword. Oh, they haven't used it. Okay. There's our Garura, and they don't have any more plays. In phase, we add back Cartessia, and we should be pretty good to go here. We get back the Branded and High Spirits as well. We have Gold Sark, which can banish the Tragedy for a search, and we top deck Grass on top of it. Getting to mill 9 cards here. We hit a Retribution, right? And a Saronir? That's not bad. Oh, and we hit an Albion, too. That's definitely not bad. That's one of the better grasses you could get off of. That's the thing about Grass and Branded. It's good, but, like, it's not as impactful as you would expect Grass to be in, like, other decks, right? Sometimes. I don't know. Sometimes it just gets them access to Branded Fusion. I guess that is pretty huge. Oh my gosh, yeah, we get to summon off the Regained, we get to summon off the Granganol. We're doing so much summoning here as our opponent's playing this Lacrima during our turn. The funny thing is, I think our opponent's trying to set up the Fiends within Paradise, but now, at this point, we've already summoned so much that it kind of just doesn't matter if they have that anymore. Like, we have so many, it just does not matter. We get to take their Detonator. That's so gross. We get to attach from the graveyard too. That's really funny. Using the Fiend's Fifth in Paradise, sending Desiree, which will of course end up sending. Oh, we get to attach the Cloud Beast, which can bounce. Oh, that's adorable. So they're gonna bounce the Proskydian instead, and we're gonna chain Detonator, pop their Ryzeal Cross. That is so cute. Cloud Beast F bounces the Lacrima. They're going to go for a Fulos as their last card here. Wow. We actually already have Lethal on board, funnily enough, because of the double damage from the Garura. So it'd probably be smart to just go to battle phase here. Instead, we're choosing to Secret Summon out the Dissipator and then go to battle phase. And that'll do it. Good stuff. GG's. Dig Dug, as well as everybody else who submitted. As always, even if you weren't featured in this week's viewer special, for one, there's always the next week to submit more duels, and for two, even if you don't get admitted, or not admitted, that's a poor word choice, even if you don't get featured, then, you know, the fact that you're submitting is still important, because if we didn't have any submissions at all, then we wouldn't be able to do this series, and I really like doing the viewer special, so thanks to each and every one of you for making this possible. But that's going to do it for now. Let us move to the outro. Hey everybody, Hexlex here. Thank you so very much for watching all the way to the very end of the video, which by the way is one of the best ways to support the channel. Speaking of supporting the channel, take a look at the names on screen. These are folks who have been so generous as to either join as a YouTube member or subscribe over on patreon.com/Hexlex to support. There's also perks for doing so. If you would like to see YouTube videos early, as well as some exclusive videos that get uploaded to YouTube, but for one reason or another I decide not to publish, definitely go ahead and hit that join button to see content early, as well as some exclusive content. If you're looking for more exclusive content, over on patreon.com, I upload exclusive videos that are not posted on YouTube just about every single day. Whether you choose to subscribe over on Patreon, join as a YouTube member, or simply continue to watch, your support is greatly appreciated. Thank you so very much. But for now, this is Hexlex. I am signing out, and I hope that you have a fantastic day.